What is going on, everybody? It's your boy, SnowBikeMike, back again with another kind of funny Xcast episode. Of course, you're home for all things Xbox here at Kind of Funny. This week, I am joined by, of course, my incredible co-host, the rogue one, Gary Whitta. Gary Whitta, it's been a while. How was your holiday week? I missed you.
Yeah, I know we skipped last week because it was the Thanksgiving week. We're still picking through the last remnants of the leftovers. You know, they pretty much lasted us the whole week after Thanksgiving. But you know, I'm well rested. I'm good to go. I got to say, I love that we do this podcast on a Friday because I'm like, you know, when Friday rolls around, I'm starting to think about all the video games I want to play this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a video gaming mood. The timing is right. I love, you know, people get to check in on Saturday morning and listen to it. It's the perfect way to kick off the weekend, I think.
And Friday's the time to get loosey-goosey, you know? It's the perfect time.
Yeah, get a little loose, get a little silly, you know?
Now, most people know that I love Mondays, Gary, but I'm going to go with you. I'm going to say Friday's my second favorite day of the week because I get to hang out with you, Barrett, and the whole Kind of Funny team. And this week is pretty special because we get to hang out with the coolest dude, the guy that is so incredible, just the dude of video games, my good friend, Jeff Grubb from Venture Beat. Jeff Grubb, you're the special guest. Let's go with it, big dog.
Thanks for having me, guys. This is awesome. I listen to the show. It's really nice to be on. I'm always like, oh man, I wish I could be on there to yell at them and how wrong they are about stuff. And now I get to be here and do it. All right.
I never put it together until you just said it. But now that you've said it, it's like blindingly obvious. He is the dude of video games.
Gary,
I'll take it.
Me and my friends love Jeff Grubb, and there's one thing we always say: if there's somebody that we could pick to put on a couch and play couch co-op games with us, it would be Jeffy Grubb.
Absolutely. When this whole thing ends, when we get our vaccines, brother, let's make it happen.
You got a deal, Jeff Grubb. Now, since we have you on the show as a guest, we're going to go through some rapid fire questions. And of course, I want you to share the hype. I want you to tell all of the Kind of Funny best friends, all of the listeners of the Kind of Funny Xcast, what you do, your awesome stuff that you've been up to. So why don't we start with that? Share some hype with me. Tell everybody what you do.
Yeah, so yeah, like you mentioned, I write for Venture Beat. I write for the Games Beat vertical. I just write about games. You know, we're supposed to be like a business site, but we had to explain this in an internal pitch meeting, why we do like kind of a variety of coverage in games. And I think the line I came up with is the only way to really understand like where games are going as a business in the future is to really ingrain yourself and fully understand where they are right now, because it's so complicated. The next thing is going to come out of nowhere. You're never going to see it coming. And the only way you're going to have your finger on the pulse at all to be able to track it is if you are just if you involve yourself with everything that's happening in games. And that's why we try to do a bunch of coverage. We do reviews, we do everything. But when it comes down to it, we write about like why games make money, how that business works. But personally, I also, you know, I had my summer game mess thing over the summer on my Twitter account, Jeff Grubb on Twitter. And that's like that. I think that's kind of what like brought me to a lot of people's attention. And that was fun to kind of keep track of all of the nonsense that happened when E3 fell through and all of those announcements got spread out all over the summer. It was fun to keep track of that stuff and keep people in the loop. And really, you know, it was, you know what, Mike, you were an inspiration. It was like, Mike, he likes to keep people hype. What is the thing I could do here that just keep people hype about video game announcements, even though it's kind of a bummer year? And that was my goal. And I think people responded to that really well. And then I'm streaming a little bit more on Twitch, also Jeff Grubb. And I got my own YouTube where we have our, where we put our podcast, actually Games Beat Decides, youtube.com/Jeffrey Grubb. We do that on Friday. We streamed it a little bit earlier. It'll be on podcast platforms later today. So if you want to check that out, I appreciate that. But yeah, that's basically me. I just like video games a lot. It's a good business to be in.
He's so cool, right, Gary? I mean, he's getting involved in the video game industry. He's out there sharing the hype about Summer Games Mess. I had so much fun following that. Gary, what do you got to say to Jeff Grubb to start off?
I love Jeffy Grubb, even though back in the day he had a bad habit of trying to stream snipe me in PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds. You never hear about that one, Mike?
No, I never heard about that.
Oh, he used to stream snipe me, but the nice thing about it was though, I still murdered that motherfucker. He still got his just desserts.
I snuck up on him, and I'm like, aha, I got this man, and he killed me.
I got the clip, Mike. I'll send you the YouTube because it's the pride of my YouTube gallery. I'll send you the clip after the show.
It was so demoralizing. Never tried it again. I'm like, that's okay, right. This is embarrassing. So yeah. Taught me my lesson. I got my spanking, and now I know. Now I know better.
We got some good history between you two. That means it's going to be a great show. Let's jump into some rapid fire icebreaker questions to get to know Jeff Grubb and just to have some fun because, man, when you see this guy smile, you smile, all right? So let's jump into it. Jeff Grubb, these are fast, furious.
Let's
If
do
you
it.
want to pause on one and give me a little backstory, that's fine, but let's get through it, all right? First console.
First console, we had the ColecoVision, but it wasn't really mine. For my 5th birthday, my brother really wanted an NES, so he made up a story like, "Oh, I'll pay for half of it. The parents will pay for the other half." And they made me do this like follow the rainbow scavenger hunt through my house, and there was an NES in my bathroom, in the bathroom tub when I got to the end. And I stayed up pretty late playing Mario. My older brother stayed up even later, but that was the first real console that was like I felt like was mine.
I love it. I'm going to say favorite, but this is your best, whatever you prefer. Favorite controller.
I like the Xbox Elite controller. I really like the Xbox, the new one that came with the X and the S. I think that they've really nailed it. It's super comfortable. And I'm feeling a little bit angry at my DualSense because it gave me a real bad injury because I was squeezing it too hard during some Astro speed runs.
Favorite game franchise?
Mario and Zelda are up there. You know what? Let me be a little bit more interesting than that. This like Mud Runner and Snow Runner. I think those are like right at the top of my list. I love Snow Runner. I love Mud Runner. I was so happy to see that those games continue to do well. So yeah, that's really my favorite.
Favorite sports franchise?
The Detroit Red Wings.
Okay. I was hoping you were going to pull out like
respect.
SSX Tricky. I thought you were going to pull out maybe some NFL Streets, but I like that.
Give me this video game. Hey man, listen. No, I'm sorry. Detroit Red Wings. I'm always thinking about the Red Wings, even though they stink this year. So this is just how it has to. Okay, if you're talking about video,
stop. No, hold up. You live in Colorado and you're a Detroit Red Wings fan. That is not okay. No way.
I like to be offensive, man. I can't help it. No, I grew up in Michigan until I was 15, and we hated the Avalanche. Boy, did we hate the Avalanche. Oh, those, yeah. But that has died down a little bit, which made it okay to move to Colorado like 5, 6, 7 years ago now. Jeez.
All right, let's get into some Xbox stuff now. You ready? Favorite Xbox console?
The Xbox 360. I mean, they got everything right, other than the whole Red Ring thing. But yeah, no, the Xbox 360 was just the pinnacle of. I remember early on. There was some like the One Up Yours podcast. Everyone would talk about like, oh, everyone's playing this game, and when you go look on your friends list, you see everyone playing the same game. And it was like we all were playing these single player games together, and it made single player games feel like multiplayer. And that's really where Xbox understood that whole idea and how important that was, and they nailed it.
I love it. Forza Horizon or Forza Traditional?
Horizon, but I love both. Absolutely.
All right. Gears or Halo?
I think Halo, although I'm not the biggest fan of either, actually.
Do you want the initiative to make a perfect dark game?
I do, but I'm okay if they don't, but I do want them to. I don't think they are.
Okay. Should Bethesda games go full exclusive?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boulder, Colorado or Denver, Colorado?
Denver.
Oh my God. Boulder, Colorado was the right answer. Okay. Don't mess this one up. Skiing or snowboarding?
Snowboarding.
No, it was snow biking, Jeff Grubb. Come on. What are you doing, Jeff Grubb? All right. Final 2 questions. If you, me, and Gary were on the couch along with Barrett, we were playing 4-player couch co-op madness, what game would you put in for us to play?
Oh, that's tough. I'm bad at recalling information like this. What's the one with the 360 one that was the hack and slash one that was really popular for a while?
Oh, Castle Crashers?
Castle Crashers. It's really vanilla, but I think it's, you start with that.
That was a fun game though.
Yes, it's solid, and you're going to get a couple really good couple hours of fun out of that. Then you do something crazier later in the night. But yeah, I love that one.
All right, and this one's going to go for both of you. We'll start with Jeff though. The holiday season is upon us. You can see me rocking my holiday sweater if you're watching live on YouTube.
If you're not watching the video, you're missing out. He looks immaculate.
Mike's Christmas jumper really is a sight to behold.
The holidays are upon us, Jeff Grubb. Do you have a special holiday gaming tradition that you like to do every single year, or maybe something that you'd like to do time and time again? What is it?
This one's more for Thanksgiving, but any time through the holiday season, I like to just play Donkey Kong Country because it's the game I most associate with the holidays. Because when it came out, I was like starting to be able to sneak down into the basement on my own. And when we had a bunch of people over the holidays, the house felt really festive and fun and nice. But normally it's like, my parents are home and it's me and my siblings, and parents are like, where's Jeff? Is he getting into trouble? But when there's a bunch of people in the house and it's a good holiday, you can sneak downstairs, play Donkey Kong Country all day. No one yells at you. You never get in trouble. And I just remember playing that game all that Thanksgiving weekend. And I try to recapture that magic a little bit. It never works, you know, nostalgia's tricky like that, but it's definitely something I still try to do every year. It's just play a bunch of Donkey Kong Country for sure.
Follow-up question. What are your
I was gonna
thoughts
say,
on Donkey Kong 64?
You know, I wanted to love that game when I was a kid, and I recognize now that it is a bad game, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry I have to tell you this, but it's a bad video game.
Crazy, Jeff, because it's one of the best games of all time.
Man, Donktober's over. You could be honest with this now.
Donktober is over.
Donktober lives on throughout all of life, man.
Gary Whitta, same question to you. You know, you have been gaming forever. You got the family now. What is a fun holiday gaming tradition that you have in your household?
I gotta say, I don't know if I really associate any particular games like around the holidays. But I think this year maybe it might be the start of a new tradition. Everyone in the house is really excited about the winter update for Animal Crossing New Horizons. There's a different toy in Nook's Cranny every day. Get your Christmas outfits from Able Sisters. The snow's going to start falling, I think, pretty soon. I want to get my Christmas trees set up on the island and have a big. I think we'll have all generations of the family come over probably sometime on is it Toy Day? I think is on Christmas Eve. I think it's usually the day before. That feels like I've always loved like the seasonality of Animal Crossing. I think it's a great way to make the game fresh, especially now that they can do these big free content drops, and it just feels like a great way to really get into the holiday spirit. You know, lay out the festive trees and the decorations, and have a party on your beautiful kind of winter wonderland Animal Crossing island.
Awesome, you two. Well, I want to start off the show before we get too deep into it with a piece of positivity. You guys know that I love to talk about positive, awesome stuff in the gaming world, and I think we're going to have a win right here, and especially for my guy Gary Whitta and a bunch of jabronis out there that have been hogging up all of the new consoles. So I don't know if you guys heard, but over the week, a scalping group was shut down for ordering about 1,000 Xbox Series X's. That was a pretty fun one. Of course, I'm coming from Eurogamer, a great write-up by Emma Kent. You guys should go check that one out. That will bring some joy. But Gary, that scalping group, they were out here promoting that they had 1,000 plus shut down. What does that make you feel like?
I'm not sure if we were referring to the same story, but I did see a story about a scalping group that were bragging about having secured a bunch of orders, and then the retailer or the retailers that they had basically canceled all of their orders. I'm not sure if that's the same story.
That's the one,
but
right, Gary.
But they did get owned. And as you know, Mike, I feel very strongly about, especially this time of the year. Like if you're a parent or someone out there like trying to get a console for your kid or even for yourself, and you can't get it because these, let's say these jabronis. Like I've got other words for them, but I feel like jabroni's probably the most family friendly one that we can use here on the podcast. If they're unrepentant, that's the thing. They're bragging about it, Mike. They're bragging about it. They're posting pictures of their warehouses and going, "Oh, look at how many PlayStations and Xboxes we got, and we're going to hold you over a barrel for them this holiday season because we know that some of you are going to be willing to pay, double, triple, 4 times the price to get one for the holidays." It's not cool. I don't like it, and I think any time that I don't know if Jeff's got any perspective on this, on like if from an industry perspective, what can possibly be done to make life more difficult for scalpers to operate. But certainly on a case by case basis, we are starting to see retailers respond to this. In the UK, it was a real issue. There was a scalping group in the UK that got, I believe, secured 3,500 PlayStations. That's more than most major retailers in the UK. And that's a fly-by-night, illicit operation. So these scalpers have got their shit together. They right now they're always thinking like 2 chess moves ahead. Institutionally, as an industry, from the production process all the way down the supply chain to the retailers, there's got to be a better way we got to find a way to freeze these scalpers out of the equation. I don't know what that is, but I feel like it's something we should be trying harder to address.
I like that. Tell me about these jabronis.
Yeah, I mean, it's the disappointing answer that it's just not worth it to a lot of the retailers to spend money on this stuff. Like their margins are so thin. They're more worried about competing with Amazon than worried about trying to make sure that this like once every 5, 6, 7 years sort of thing is a pleasant experience for us. We're going to end up paying eventually. We'll deal with we'll have more patience than they will have willingness to spend money to improve their very bespoke store system. So my hope would be that maybe a third party does develop something that is like kind of open and very easy to implement and cheap, and then every store can just use that. But even then, like that's still going to cost some money, and every store is going to kind of be not every store is going to use it, and it's so infrequent console launches, and I know like people like point to like the sneaker system, but the sneaker thing is like every couple of weeks there's going to be something new to put on there, and it's just not the same thing.
But we saw it with the RTX 3080 as well. They're impossible to get. Basically anytime there's a hot product, the scalpers make it almost impossible to get. To your point, Jeff, I guess the problem is for the retailers, right? They're not really motivated to fix it because it doesn't hurt them, right? They don't care who they sell their consoles to. If they sell it to a scalper, if they sell it to me or you, and that's the end point, we go set it up in their living room. They get their $500. If they sell it to a scalper, they still get their $500. They don't. Once the money's in their pocket, I guess they don't really care what happens next.
Yeah, and there's an argument to be made that like if they sell it to a legitimate customer, that customer is going to be more willing to spend more money on other products at that store related to that console purchase. They'll buy games, they'll buy peripherals and things like that. And that's something that like Sony and Microsoft are very concerned about. That's why they want to make sure that they're trying to get these products into real gamers' hands because they don't make much money selling the hardware. It's a risk reward. It's a benefit, a cost benefit analysis that these companies are doing. And most of the time it's a blip for them. It's a small blip of like people being annoyed. And it's
more of an optics issue because as we saw with both of the console launches this year, I mean, it was, it wasn't a good look for Walmart, with the PlayStation, because a lot of people are going on there trying to get it, that we've all been through that thing where, I've got it. It's in the cart, but it won't let you check out. Like, it's just an exercise in frustration. Again, it's not really affecting Walmart or Best Buy or Target's bottom line, but there was a lot of negative sentiment towards these big retailers over the past couple of months because they can't they're not doing their jobs right. If a couple of bots can get in there in the first 10 seconds and grab everything up, you're going to wind up with a lot of unsatisfied customers. And maybe next time they'll go look somewhere else to buy their product. Yeah,
and you bring up a point that sentiment isn't something that just disappears. The gaming community is very tight knit. I know it's huge. There's millions of gamers out there, but we're loud. We talk to each other. If someone has a bad experience, and a lot of people have a bad experience going to Walmart, you're gonna that sentiment's going to last. People are going to say, I hate Walmart. I remember what it was like to try to buy a console there. I don't shop there anymore. We hold these grudges as a tight knit gaming community, there's a lot of benefit for these companies if they can win us over. Gamers are very loyal. We spend a lot of money, and if you can create a nice experience for us, there might be something worth it there. It's just that's like a long run. That's like a long game that these companies tend not to play. It's kind of against. It's not just I'm saying it's these companies. It's the system we live in. It's the way capitalism works, and there's not much that they are willing to do to change that because they're just looking for the next quarter and maybe the next quarter after that. And there's no console launches in those next couple of quarters. Well, maybe a Nintendo Switch Pro, who knows? But yeah, most likely, no, they're not going to have to worry about this again for 5, 6, 7 years. So they're just not going to do anything about it. It stinks.
All right. Well, just a little positivity of like, hey, that scalping group got shut down, and that's freaking awesome, especially heading into the holidays. One more piece of positivity out there. Got to show some love. Friend of the show, Paris Lily, is set to host a developer Q&A during Cyber Night, the digital launch party event with CD Projekt Red and Twitter Gaming. That's going down December 9th, 3 p.m. West Coast, Best Coast time. Go figure out your time zones from there. But big shout out to Paris. Congratulations on an awesome hosting gig over with Cyberpunk and Twitter Gaming. Let's jump into the show. Some quick housekeeping news. Of course, this is the Kind of Funny Xcast. Each and every Saturday, me, Gary, and the Kind of Funny team bring you all the Xbox news you need to know about. And of course, I would love for you to go out there, like, share, subscribe the video on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. And of course, go find it on podcast services around the globe. 2020 has been one heck of a year. It has sucked, but you guys have made it awesome. So I want to thank each and every one of you on behalf of myself, Gary, Alana Pierce, Barrett, Courtney, and everybody that works hard to bring you the Kind of Funny Xcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in and watching and supporting. All of you have supported us throughout this dream, from a stretch goal to a pilot program to extending past the launch of the Series X. It wouldn't be possible with all of you guys and gals listening out there. So truly and honestly, best friends, thank you so much for supporting the Kind of Funny Xcast. Thank you for supporting the Kind of Funny team. And thank you for supporting one another. I know this is a trying year. I know it sucks out there. But if you guys go out there and have a positive impact on somebody else's day, they're going to do the same thing to somebody else. And we're going to continue to spread the positivity and love. So thank you all so much for an incredible year to kick off the Kind of Funny Xcast. It means the world to each and every one of us. You guys ready to talk some Xbox news?
Let's do it.
All right. We got to start it off with Jeff Grubb. Jeff Grubb, do I need to get my conspiracy theory hat on? Do I need to have Gary Whitta explain to me what reaching for news is? Gary, what'd you call it on Kind of Funny Games Daily, where people, they're reaching for news out here in December? What do we call that? When people get bored of news?
On the game on the Games Daily the day, I call it. It's in the newspaper trade. We call it silly season. It's
Silly
where there's not a lot of real news around, and so but you gotta fill those column inches somehow, and so people will print anything, no matter how silly. We are usually the dog days of summer and right over the holidays. When everyone kind of goes to sleep for the holidays. Those are the two annual silly seasons. We're right in the middle of one right now, so I'm guessing we're going to hear some pretty silly news.
We're going to hear some silly news. Jeff Grubb, this is your moment now. I'm out there. I'm going through all the news. I'm checking it out. I see over on Eurogamer, they got a giant write-up about you. And now I got to jump over to the Xbox Empire podcast, which was a great listen, where you were on the show. And you said that you think Forza Horizon 5 could launch 2021. Jeff Grubb, is this some silly, silly news right now? What happened to Forza Motorsport, the platform? What happened here, Jeff Grubb?
Okay, yeah. This is a little bit of silly season. You're right. The fact that this stuff always gets turned into news, and I try to couch it. I try to say, this is like informed speculation at best. It's I'm like, people ask me a question, like, what do you think Microsoft might have next year that we don't know about? And I said, well, I think there's a chance maybe that Forza Horizon is ready before the next Motorsport, and we might see it next year. Like, that's possible. Possible. I think it's maybe. It's maybe, but
what? I'm sorry. Like, we're going to use that as the headline, Jeff. I'm sorry.
Yes, I know. I've learned this lesson repeatedly now. Yeah, that's gets used as the headline. Jeff Grubb says that Forza Horizon's coming next year.
Forza Horizon 5, yeah.
Yeah. So this is not like a worry about motorsport sort of thing. This is they're taking their time with motorsport. They promised it to us already. But I think they even said, like, in a blog post, that they're like, we are really rethinking this. We're really like building this from scratch. It's going to take some time. And if you look at Forza Horizon, it doesn't need the same sort of reboot. I don't even think motorsport necessarily needed it, but it could use sort of a complete refresh. Where Horizon, you come out with Horizon 5 in a new setting, it could stay on that 2-year cycle, pretty close to that 2-year cycle that it was on. So if it's going to be 2-3 years, why wouldn't it be ready? Playground Games, I know, is working on Fable, but they have 2 teams. They could have this ready, and to me, it makes a lot of sense. I think like I said on the Xbox Empire podcast, I've heard some rumblings, but nothing's confirmed. This is just stuff that sort of makes sense based on what I'm hearing. But that doesn't. Please don't reprint these headlines. Don't say this is again Jeff Grubb saying for sure this is going to happen. I just think it makes sense to me, and I think it would be a good game for them to have as well. I think a Forza Horizon 5 ready for Xbox Series X and S with a cool setting. That game is something everyone will want to get, and it'll kind of shake up the conversation about, like, where are the first party games from Microsoft a little bit, and it would be a nice surprise too.
That's what everybody's asking, Jeff Grubb. Where the heck are the first party games? Let's stick with Forza Horizon 5. What is the dream setting for you?
I think I know it, so I don't want to speculate too much. Like, Gary, you go. I'll make a faces. You guys say some stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember what the most recent one was in the UK, which I really liked. As a native Brit, I actually thought they did a very good job of kind of capturing the rural English countryside. It felt very authentic. It had a good vibe to it. The English country manor houses, the James Bond cars. It had this. It felt like it had very kind of authentically British DNA to it that I liked. What was the one before that? What was the previous setting? Australia. Yeah. So, like, I don't know where would they go that would be cool.
Gary, Barrett Courtney, please play the song. Okay. Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, Gary. Everybody wants.
Oh, that's what you want. You want some drifting? Okay.
Come on.
It is the best Fast and Furious movie.
Now I'm gonna
okay.
What?
I'm gonna be very direct right here, Jeff Grubb. I need you to stare at the camera.
Yeah,
don't you dare break. All right. I need you to blink 5 times if this is gonna be set in Japan. For all of the audio listeners out there, he has not blinked 5 times. He's just stayed stoic and not moved at all. Gary, on the other hand, has blinked 5 times, saying that he does want it now to be in Japan.
I was actually thinking I would like kind of a classic Americana, like Route 66, Monument Valley kind of vibe to it, like the Great American, the Great American Open Road. Like, that would be kind of cool. But no, but Tokyo drifting
like for you. It's Pixar's. Pixar's Cars.
That's
for
not
the
gonna,
Xbox 360.
That's not going to be it.
I will say, like, I do agree with you, Gary, and that's like more, I think, of like a Forza's pace is like what you're saying more so than what Mike wants in the Japan setting, which would be dope. It would be dope, Mike.
Barrett, you and I can have a sidebar afterwards. Let me just quantify that what I just said about the Fast and Furious movies. It's arguable whether or not it's the best one because everyone has their own personal preferences. But I will say this: it is the most important Fast and Furious.
Oh yeah,
even though it was like intended as like a weird little side project, it ended up becoming like the narrative linchpin around.
Yeah, it introduced Han. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it introduced Han. It's the most honestly. Joy Luck Club introduced Han, which is I guess is now the most important in the series. But no, it's definitively Fast 5. Anything underneath that, you can order it however you want. Fast 5 is the best Fast and Furious movie.
Maybe the best movie. Period.
Jeff Grubb, what is more important to the franchise? Is it Forza Horizon or is it Forza Motorsports and this new platform they're building? Is there one or the other that takes precedence in the larger gaming community that you've seen?
So you really have to keep both of them going strong. Both are really important. Forza Horizon is an open world driving game that's very well made, and there's always going to be a spot for that. But Motorsport has this really core, loyal audience that does stuff like make cosmetics for the game that then get shared in Horizon. Like they work across the game. So, a lot of people making those cosmetics, they're doing so in Motorsport because they want to build their perfect car. And that's important to them. And then we all get the benefit from that if we're people who are more likely to play a lot more Horizon. And so maybe Motorsport is actually more important because those are the super duper loyal fans of this series who want to always be there. They always want to come back for no matter how many Motorsports they make. That is their game. And I think there is a huge value in keeping that kind of fan happy. A lot of us are kind of fair weather, like, oh, I heard the new Horizon is good. We're going to check that out. And that's important. That makes big sales. It gets the game involved in like Game of the Year talks and stuff like that. And that's absolutely important. You can't discount that. But I think keeping those core fans happy is actually how you have long-term success. You have a long-term community, and that's the stuff you can build on for forever.
I do think it was a smart decision that they made, whoever made that decision way back in the day to kind of basically bifurcate the Forza franchise into, keep Motorsport going, because again, especially with PlayStation, Gran Turismo has always been a pillar of the PlayStation franchise. Microsoft needed to have their version of that. Clearly, Motorsport checks that box, but at the same time, it freezes out a lot of people that just want to, I don't have a lot. Me personally, I don't enjoy the Motorsport games. They're too fiddly, right? Like something for me who just wants to pick up a controller and drive. Those games are not accessible to me. So, coming up with that I don't even want to call it a spin-off because I feel like it is, it very much its own thing now. But that kind of companion franchise where you can just like have a good time driving around and not having to worry about, my wheelbase is half an inch off, so I'm not enjoying the game. I think it was very smart that they basically have these two flavors of Forza to tailor both to, the gearheads and people that just want to drive around and have fun.
Yeah, and would it be an E3 presentation if they didn't hoist down a Ferrari or a Porsche or a BMW next to Phil Spencer? I mean, they got to keep this franchise going no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep it moving there. Jeff Grubb won't tell me any more about Forza Horizon 5 and whatever. But, Gary Whitta, you and I, we've had about a full week to 2 weeks now with the Xbox Series S. I know you're very excited to share your impressions and your thoughts about it with everybody listening. I brought Jeff Grubb along because he was the king of impressions and reviews throughout that period before the console launch. So, Gary, I'll kick it to you. Why don't you get me hype or get me excited or tell me the negatives about this Xbox Series S? What's up with it?
I've had a good time with it so far. Since the last time we spoke, it was still, I had only just I was about to unbox it, or I just unboxed it and I hadn't really taken the deep dive yet. Since then, I have set it up down here. Like I said before, I have this whole theory that the S in Series S is for streamers, that it's the perfect, streaming solution, given that there's no real 4K streaming and that most, PC gaming, like 4K gaming on PC, like PC monitors, that's still very much a fringe thing. Like not most GPUs don't drive 4K very well yet. 4K monitor technology is still like kind of, maybe a year or two more. So most people who are like playing games on PC or have a PC streaming setup that they want to attach an Xbox to via a capture card are going to be gaming at 1080p or 1440p, which is exactly what the Series S is targeting. So you're still going to see better performance with the Series X, but maybe you don't want to spend the extra $200. I think for a lot of people out there, and because we've seen massive uptake in Twitch streaming during COVID, because people are looking, for ways to connect with others, and big explosion on the streaming side. webcams, podcasting mics, capture cards are impossible to find all this streaming gear right now because there's been such renewed and increased interest in streaming. People are looking to plug their consoles into their PC gaming setups and play them. I think the Series S is like the perfect kind of good enough for that purpose box. And in my experience, let me see, what did I play? I played some. I went back to my Xbox gaming roots. The very first Xbox game I ever played. The original, the classic, the big boy, Halo Combat Evolved, went back, ran it on the Series X, played the first few levels of it. And I got to say, my favorite, this is obviously nothing new. We all know this, but my favorite feature about that game is you press that option button and it will toggle you back and forth between the remastered version and what it originally looked like. You don't really, I feel like they did that because they wanted to make sure that you knew just how improved, because you look at the remaster, and go, yeah, this is kind of how I remember it, but like your memory plays tricks on you. But you press that button, they're like, no, this is what it looked like. Like, oh wow, yeah, it actually looked incredibly primitive. Again, 20 years ago it looked great. Today, it has not aged well at all. You can really see the night and day difference between what the original Xbox game looked like and the new remaster. I played it both on Series S and Series X. A little bit smoother on Series X, as you'd expect. But all I know is I had a terrific time playing it on stream on the Series S. A bunch of other games I've been playing, Tetris Effect Connected, which I'm in love with, The Tourist, and some of the other, the games that aren't going to push the system quite so hard. A lot of them are running at 60 frames a second, even on the Series S. I think it's a great little box. I still think it's going to be a really important component of Microsoft's overall strategy. I don't know how they're selling or how Microsoft even proportion these. It seemed like the Series S was kind of harder to find over the holidays, but maybe because Microsoft put fewer of them into the channel, it's going to take a while for the dust to settle and to really see. But just anecdotally, I'm seeing a lot of people out there that had real interest in the Series S because, again, not all of us have $500 to drop on a console. A lot of people are going to top out around 300, and anything after that starts to feel like an extravagance, especially if you don't have a 4K TV, especially if you don't particularly care about 4K gaming, as many casual and mainstream gamers don't. I've really enjoyed it. I've got it set up here. It looks gorgeous. The only thing I don't like about it is it makes my my little office down here look a little bit like kind of the bachelor studio apartment you had when you were like 22 years old, because it looks like the sad little hot plate that you get from Walgreens and you cook all your meals on. Cook your Campbell's chunky soup and your ramen noodles on it.
Boil it out of the can. Yeah, you just cook it right in the can.
Yeah, when you just like when you were broke as a 19, 20-year-old kid in college, and you're like mixing up the rice and tomato ketchup and going, oh yeah, this is a gourmet meal, and it only cost me 89 cents. We've seen all the memes, but it's an adorably wee little box. It's remarkably powerful for what for the size. And what it costs. I personally really like it. I think it's going to stay as my streaming box for the time being. And again, it's going to take months or a year or longer before we really start to see an accurate picture of just how important a part of Microsoft's overall next gen Xbox strategy the Series S has been and will continue to be going forward. But I have this feeling, I have this hunch that it was a very smart move by Microsoft to add this, alongside the Series X, and there was that lower price option for people that, again, me, we're hardcore gamers, we'll blow all of our disposable income on the biggest and the best version. The Series X was always going to be our go-to box. But you got to remember, many people out there aren't as privileged as us or aren't as hardcore as us that they're going to drop $500 on a gaming box. For them, that $300 price point, coupled with the performance that the Series S brings to the table. Again, the two key words are good enough, and the Series S is more than good enough for most gamers. I think it's going to be a really important part of their strategy going forward, and I personally have had a great time with it.
More than good enough. That's well put right there, Gary. I like that. I'll let Jeff Grubb speak before me because I know, Jeff, you got to have your hands on both the consoles really very early. You were one of the early reviewers, people giving impressions, and I know you were working really hard. I loved all the content that you put out. Great job on that, Jeff. But what do you think about this Series S box in your eyes?
I'm really happy with it, and I think Gary nailed it for the most part. That it's more than good enough. I think it really fits in well at its price point. I think it's going to be a huge thing anytime they discount it. Anytime it gets down to $250 or lower, you're going to start thinking like, man, this is just almost a a media box at that point, like the NVIDIA Shield. You can go out and get a $250 version of the NVIDIA Shield or something like that, and you would get that to play a really nice quality 4K, ultra HD content from Netflix and things like that. And if you think of the Xbox and the Xbox Series S in those terms, it's a home run. It's a slam dunk. It's a no brainer at that point. You're going to get all that stuff. It's going to run really well in 4K on any television, and then it's also going to be able to play games, and it's going to also be able to play Game Pass and those games. I think the big thing is I'm actually almost surprised at how well the games run. I thought they were going to run fine. I never bought the 1440p thing. I always thought there it was going to be 1080p, and for the most part, I think that's right. But I've been playing Yakuza on there because I have set it up as the media box in my basement over there, and the kids' playroom is right over there, so I can work while they're playing. And I'll put on Netflix for them, let them watch some stuff while I'm working, and then when it's time for me to go over there and hang out with them, they'll go play with their toys, and I can turn on Yakuza really quick. And first of all, it's quick resume, so it starts right up. I don't have to think about it. It's such a low barrier to entry, and that stuff works just as well on the S as it does on the X. And then there I'm just chilling out, playing a few games after work, and I don't feel like I'm missing anything because I'm like, oh man, I wish I just had the X over here. I never think that. It is just such a smooth experience. It's really good. I think it's going to fit into that sort of situation, a kid's playroom, a media room, like a second room, a bedroom, any of those sorts of situations. It's going to work really well. And then for like those people that are sort of like PlayStation diehards, when you like start thinking like, man, I would like to just have something to play Game Pass with. Get the S. Just get the S. That's fine. You don't like, yeah, we know you're going to play most of your games on your PlayStation 5, and that's fine. If you're looking for a good way to get into Game Pass, though, to have access to a bunch of games that you could at least try, and then if you really like them, go buy them on your PlayStation and then get the better versions, a slightly better version for your big 4K big boy screen. That's a totally viable thing. But as an affordable way to get a media box in your home and to have a good gaming system in your home, they just really nailed it, I think, and I'm surprised how happy I am with it.
I like hearing both of you happy because I'm happy with it as well. After my 2 weeks now with this console, I've been impressed through and through, right? I'm having a really good time, and I look around my house and I notice, well, shucks, I only have one 4K TV anyways, so it's not like I'm missing out on anything going over into the bedroom and playing on this. I think the biggest one for me is, man, I played Immortals Phoenix Rising on this console yesterday and had a blast. It was fast load times. The game looked good. It played even better. And I was really impressed that it did that. And then transitioning into Call of Duty Warzone, where I felt like, oh man, I'm just playing Call of Duty Warzone. There was no true downgrade to what I was seeing on the screen, playing the big major titles that I know I play all the time. And like you said, Jeff, I played Yakuza. The load times were still super fast. The game looked just fine. If I wasn't standing 2 feet away from this screen right now as I talk to you guys, I wouldn't have noticed Ichi's little hair details from the X to the S, right? Like it looked the exact same game and runs the exact same way to me. And that's what I think is really cool about this. And of course, a lot of gamers out there, Gary said it best, right? Here's the diehard gamers. We know what you want. This is like the family of 4. This is that college student with not enough money. This is, you got to know what kind of gamer you are and understand that this is a great box right here. This is a terrific box for the price that it's at, that's capable of doing a lot of awesome things. Also playing your Netflix and Hulu. It's small enough where every time I pick it up, Gary, I feel like I'm holding a small baby. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, this thing is perfect to just walk around with. Because when I pick up the Series X, I'm like lumping it around. I'm like, oh my God, it's so heavy. But truly and honestly, this box is fun to pick up and change room to room. I actually enjoy doing it a lot just because of the size and what this thing is. So I'm impressed by it too, and I'm really enjoying it. Little down on still the storage space. I know we could talk about that, but honestly, truly, I have 7 games installed, and I'm 98% of the way full. So I'm a little disappointed in that.
I think a couple of points. First of all, on that last point, I think because I've got the expansion card. I think that if you're looking to juggle games, like some people like they want to go back in the bedroom or their den or whatever your basement and play on a second Xbox. If you manage your storage in such a way that the games you feel like you're going to be juggling, put them on that expansion card. Just pop the card out, take it down to your basement, pop it in the other Xbox, and it's going to work just fine. So, you'll be able to move those things back and forth, and it's fairly convenient. I think that's going to become more viable once, the storage options start to open up and the prices coming down. The other thing that I didn't mention, though, but all 3 of us basically are case studies in this. I mentioned the Series S as, you know, a good opportunity for Microsoft to sell, you know, Xboxes to the casual market that aren't, you know, the kind of people that are going to drop $500 on an Xbox, but maybe they'll drop 3. There's also people like us though who'll buy more than one, right? And like if you think it sounds like my situation is actually quite similar to yours and Jeff's in that, you know, so the living room is the flagship, right? The Series X is there. I've got my way too expensive LG 65, you know, inch OLED screen. That's that, you know, if you want to like really kind of roll out big time, that's where you play those games. But sometimes my wife just wants to go back into the bedroom and chill out with Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Put a Series S back there. You know, like your TV in the bedroom is probably like, so for example, like we've got the big fancy TV in the living room, but back in the bedroom, it's just like a $300 TV that we got from Walmart. Like it's a good enough TV. And so it's sometimes when you want to change it up and like, again, go into the basement or your kids want to play a game or whatever, the Series S I think is also potentially going to be a good play for, you know, the more serious, you know, gamers and the people that have got more money to spend, families, people like that, as the second box, right? The backup box. The box is in the secondary location, in the den, in the basement, in the bedroom. Microsoft's done a great job with this of, you know, the save only, you know, when you like, if my wife's playing Valhalla, for example, in the living room, decides to go back into the bedroom and play it takes like 2 seconds for her save to sync to the other box through the cloud, and she's playing right away. It's super fast. It's really, really convenient. So I think like you've got to be pretty hardcore to like, you know, like put Series X's everywhere you go in the house, right? I'm sure some 1%ers are doing that, but I feel like there is a market, not just people that are buying Series S as their only box, but buying a Series S as a second box to put another location in the house for like not the super duper premium experience you're going to get in your living room or whatever your like a alpha location is, but to have that ability to go and like pick up like again, I want to play, you know, Yakuza. Leah wants to play Assassin's Creed. We both can't play at once. One of us will, you know, we'll flip a coin and one of us will go play in the bedroom. And having that Series S is a way to open up that possibility without having to drop, you know, $500 twice on 2 Series X's, when especially for that second box, you probably don't need that much power in a second, you know, location where your TV is not going to be as fancy or whatever. I think that's an option as well. If Microsoft can get to a point where they're selling multiple Xboxes to, you know, families, then, you know, that's a good position to be in as well.
I'm also really like speaking to just the idea of the performance. I think I haven't had any issues when I'm playing games on Xbox Series S or X where I notice and I'm like, oh, I'm unhappy with the way this game performs. But when you see the comparison to PlayStation 5 and you hear, oh, it's because the development kits haven't been out there for very long, that just makes me hopeful. It's like, oh, these games are already running pretty well. And the assumption here is as developers get more familiar with the new dev kits, it's just going to get better. Like there's this idea it's an old idea now, AMD GPUs, because it no longer applies. The AMD GPUs are pretty refined when they come out, but this old idea called they age like a fine wine. Like there's a fine wine driver update schedule where you know, they start out pretty good. They were pretty good GPUs, and then as the drivers get more refined, it ages like a fine wine, and the performance gets even better, and you get even more out of this thing that you bought a while ago. And I think that we're gonna and that, to be clear, that's just kind of BS marketing. Like that's like people convincing themselves that they're really happy that the thing didn't perform as best as it could have right out of the gate. But there's still something to it where it's like, if it's running well right now, if it's running pretty good and it's just going to get better over time, that's kind of that.
No, right? Jeff, I don't think that's BS at all. I think that's something that we've seen in, you know, as an established pattern in console generations before. Consoles weirdly do get better with age, even though the technology is not moving. Developers learn as time progresses how to squeeze more potential out of them. I'll use an example from the PlayStation world. The Last of Us Part 2, although that's running on a PlayStation and on a PlayStation 4 and a Pro, that could never have been a launch title because they didn't know enough about the PlayStation to squeeze the performance out of it. That was a title that came at the very end of the PlayStation 4 generation, at which point Naughty Dog and Sony had learned everything about squeezing, you know, every little shortcut, every little trick, how to make that game look as good as it looks. That would not have been a launch title. And so I think you're going to see, you know, going forward, you know, across PlayStation and Xbox, the games are only going to get better, especially because this is a pretty big overhaul technologically. The games are only going to get better as, even though the hardware remains static, our knowledge of how to get the best out of the hardware improves with every new game that we develop. So yeah, I think you're going to see, I think you're going to be seeing the full, you know, potential of these new generation consoles only, you know, really kind of come to the fore, maybe at least a year, 2-3 years from now, as the developers really start to kind of get under the hood and figure out, where all the tricks and shortcuts are.
All right. Hey, you two, what do we think about this box's future, though? Of course, as you say, we're going to see developers really find a way to fine tune all these games to be best on these consoles. But do we think that this Series S is going to last the long run of this console generation? Will we have a drop off here? What is this box going to be in 5 years from now that you guys can think of?
I think it'll be fine even in 5 years. I think it'll be fine. I think that there's a chance, especially as like Xbox All Access sort of subscriptions, where you pay the $35 per month or the $25 per month, and over 2 years you get that, you get the console, and you get Game Pass Ultimate. Once those subscriptions fall off, and then Microsoft's looking for new things to put out there to get those people back on the treadmill of paying a lot of money each month, maybe they might think of like some sort of revision that comes out and makes the Series S maybe feel a little bit old, maybe not run quite as well. But even in that situation, I wouldn't worry too much about it, because I think it'll be fine. But it also creates a situation that happens with like Nintendo consoles, where or Nintendo handhelds specifically, where the people that care will just go out and buy the new Xbox, and then they'll either hand their Series S off to someone else, or a little brother, or a cousin, or whatever. You give it to your mom or something, and she could use, like, oh, hey, you can play games if you want, and this could be the best. It's going to be way better watching Netflix than that old crappy Amazon stick that you have. And those things will continue to live on as like secondhand devices and create more customers for Microsoft to sell games to, more people to subscribe to Game Pass to. And I think Microsoft knows this. I think they understand that that's like the eventual life cycle for a console like this. And so they are going to do everything they can to make sure that the Series S continues to work and is supported and runs just fine. And honestly, if they are targeting 1080p, I look at the PCs, the RTX or the RX 480. It was an AMD GPU that came out 5 years ago, targeting 1080p. And honestly, to this day, you barely need more than that 4 years later, because 1080p, we've pretty much topped out. You can't really do much more with graphics at 1080p until you start getting into ray tracing and stuff like that. But for the most part, at 1080p, you can get 60 frames per second with a four-year-old GPU. And I don't see that changing much, actually, over the next couple of years. We've reached that plateau where you're going to get good enough. And to if you need more hardware than that, you're talking about spending more money as a developer, making more bigger and more expensive games. And that's sort of something most developers actually aren't going to do. They want to spend the least amount of money making something that appeals broadly. And I think that's going to include the Series S for the next 5 years.
I think that Series S is, again, a really important part of the launch strategy right now. Again, it's often easy to take for granted, but for many people, price is the most compelling factor. And for people that are looking at, they want to get into the next, they're seeing all the hype, in the mainstream media right now. Everyone's talking about next gen consoles. They want to get in on it. They're looking at the prices that are available. You've got $500 for the top end PlayStation, the Series X, $400 for the digital PlayStation. And then Microsoft right now has the low ground. If there's it's over, Anakin. I have the low ground. I've got the $300 box. That a lot of people are just going to get the cheapest box. And again, it's good enough for most people. And you know what? Most people is a lot of people. That's by definition, the majority of people who are going to be potentially the market for that box. Where I think it's interesting, and I want to bring the conversation back to something you and I have talked about before, Mike, especially since we've got Jeff here, who thinks a lot about the business, is our theory that I think Microsoft is going to continue to reach more into catering for the low end and lowering that barrier to entry more and more. We've talked about the idea of like an Xbox stick, like a dongle, like a Chromecast kind of thing. Maybe they do some kind of Stadia type, pack where there's a Series S controller in there with a little dongle that goes in the back of your TV for cloud streaming. Again, I still think that give it a couple of years, you're going to see when you go like to Walmart or Target and you see the wall of all the TVs in the electronics section, and they'll have those little stickers at the bottom that tell you all the things that they do: Netflix, Disney Plus, Spotify, Amazon. I think you're going to see a little green Xbox badge added to that as they bake in like a little Xbox xCloud or Game Pass app into your TV. Microsoft already own this territory in a way that Sony doesn't, right? Right now, today, it's possible to get into the Xbox ecosystem without buying any Xbox hardware. If you've got a Windows PC or an Android phone, get yourself a Game Pass subscription and you're playing Xbox games, right? You can do that right now. And I think that Microsoft is going to double down on that, perhaps with a dongle, perhaps with baked-in smart TV apps, most likely both. I think that is something you're going to, I know that Phil has hinted at that in the past, but I think in the next couple of years, I think you're going to see that become a reality. Maybe some kind of dedicated dongle, but I think more likely and almost certainly smart TVs with some kind of Xbox cloud streaming app baked right into the firmware.
Yeah, that's without a doubt that's going to happen. Like, you're absolutely right about that. I think Microsoft's going to get really aggressive about that. I think most TVs, most smart TVs would run just fine as a cloud streaming platform. Some TVs are worse than others because they just kind of use pretty low end crappy chips, but that would make like browsing the interface kind of a pain. But Microsoft might be the kind of company that could step in and say, hey, you use maybe a slightly better processor to make sure that the cloud experience is good. Why don't you kind of come work with us in Azure, and we'll put some of your cloud stuff on Azure to make sure that the TV experience is really smooth, and anything you want to serve up from the cloud to your smart TV platform as like your way of making money on these really cheap sets that you're selling. Maybe we can help you out with that. And then as part of that, don't just put Xbox the app on your TV, make it like included from the start. Put an Xbox button on a controller. Maybe we can find a way to pack in video game controllers with the TVs. There's going to be a lot of opportunities here for Microsoft to like make those partnerships. They are a company that can afford to do that. They're positioned because of their cloud infrastructure to help these companies in ways that goes beyond just like offering video games on their TV. They can help them with other stuff. And I think that's going to be attractive to like companies like TCL and this is inevitable. This is a race. This is Microsoft not just racing against like Sony. They're racing against and not just Google or Amazon, like Tencent. Tencent's going to want to be in like TCL TVs offering up something similar. And if Microsoft can get there first and also be so much better than everyone else in terms of the games they're offering, the experience they're offering, the quality of the cloud streaming experience, so that when other people show up and they're not as good and the games aren't as good, it's going to be like it. Do you want to get on Game Pass tonight in the same way do you want to watch Netflix tonight? It's going to be synonymous with the act of playing games on a TV for a lot of people.
I agree. I think the big win, the end game that Microsoft is going towards is achieving that same kind of ubiquity that Netflix achieved. Jeff made a good point. Like once the hardware manufacturers are putting a dedicated button on the remote, like they do now, like Netflix, Amazon. On the PlayStation 5 remote, they put Spotify and Disney Plus buttons on there. There's deal making that goes on behind the scenes, to get that button placement. But I think that's what Microsoft is going to want to get. Like they want that Xbox button, they want the Xbox badge on every TV. I think as well, Jeff makes a good point about Microsoft's very protective of their Xbox experience. And I think that they won't put it, they won't just license it out to anyone. They probably would say, look, if you want to have the Xbox app on your TV, you've got to hit your TV's got to hit like certain technical specifications to make sure that people can have a good experience. The whole point of cloud streaming is you don't need a lot of muscle under the hood because everything's done server side, but still you want to have a snappy interface. Like you want people's first experience with Xbox or the Game Pass ecosystem, if it is coming through a smart TV, to feel snappy and good. Like probably the networking hardware that's baked into the TV needs to be pretty good Wi-Fi chip. Like make sure the Ethernet is solid, because that's really important. But also just enough processing for just the interface and the front end and the UX to be good. And again, most low-end TVs can do that. I have a crappy $300 TCL TV that has Roku baked. It has Roku baked into it, and it works great. So the key is like making the barrier to entry low enough that it can become truly ubiquitous. Where just like it's just something that comes with every consumer electronics device.
All right, I like all that. Oh, you got me thinking about the future. Got me excited about what the possibilities could be. Let's round this up, Gary. Give me your final sentences, 2 sentences. What do you think of your impression of the Series S that we've had for the past couple of weeks now?
I gotta say, and I'm like Mr. More Power, right? You know me. I gotta have more power. Originally, the plan was to have a second Series X as my streaming box, and as I realized that probably was overkill, given that again I'm going to get slightly better performance, but in all of the ways that matter for streaming, 1080p, I've got a 1440p native monitor. Twitch only outputs at 4K streaming is going to come one day, but it's not there yet. Right now, Twitch caps out at 1080p 60. So for basically anyone who's in the streaming game right now, the Series S is going to do the job. And again, I played in the same way that you didn't notice a massive difference. But I think you actually put them like both side by side, you're going to see the difference. But like if I'm playing Halo Master Chief Collection downstairs on my Series S and then go upstairs and play it on my Series X, as I did, I remember thinking like, yeah, this feels a bit smoother, but it's not like night and day. I'm not like, oh, I'm really starting to regret putting a Series S in my office because I feel like I'm missing out on all this extra performance. It's not a big enough deal that I feel like I need to be like X'd out all across the house. And this is someone who, again, I've got more money than sense. I will blow too much disposable income on shit that I don't need. I could very easily have put a Series X in my office, even though it would have been overkill. But the Series S has proved itself. Again, I keep coming back to it. Good enough, more than good enough. I'm very happy with it. The time may come down the road that I'm thinking, I kind of want to do an upgrade. But for right now, I'm really, really pleased with it. And again, I don't know how much of it factored into Microsoft's strategy. But again, I keep coming back to the S is for streaming. If you're looking to stream video games on Twitch or YouTube or God forbid Facebook, don't go there. But whatever platform you want to stream on, it's gonna do the job for you, and I'm really, really pleased with it. And again, I just think it's a very smart pillar of Microsoft's overall strategy. I think it's the beginning of them catering to again, for me, that long-term dream of Xbox is just everywhere. Buy a TV, Xbox is on it. It's like Netflix, for example. Right? It's almost impossible to buy a TV that doesn't have Netflix on it, baked into the hardware at this point. And I think that's ultimately where they want to get. And that might end up being the magic bullet that really helps them compete seriously with Sony, because we all know they have a lot of territory to catch up on. So Sony is still obviously the big one. Massively more successful than Xbox One. Microsoft's coming into this new generation like significantly behind in terms of install base, user base, mind share. Even like the PlayStation for me is still a bigger brand than Xbox. Xbox has done a great job of like ingratiating itself into the public consciousness as just one of the big, kind of gaming brand. Like everyone knows, oh yeah, Xbox, I've heard of that. Video games, right? Like everyone knows what it is. But they still have a lot of territory to make up. And I think that again, just making it as easy as possible, and training people to think of Xbox not as like literally a box that you put under your TV, but as just like a place where you go to play games, and there's like any number of like hardware solutions that will get you there, and it just gets easier and easier because oh shit, I just bought a new TV and it's already got Xbox baked into it. That to me is the end game, and that's what's going to potentially be the game changing part of Microsoft's strategy over the next few years.
That was a really long 2 sentences,
yeah,
Gary.
I'm like, I forgot where I even was. Gary Whitta is right. Jeff Grubb, really quick, if people are asking you if they should buy this console or not, what are you telling people?
Yeah. Well, real quick, Gary, you're right. Yeah, you more power. I've always considered you the Tim Allen of video games. But my 2 cents is I want to go play it right now. Like, I got the Series X over here for like coverage. I have it connected to my 4K capture card so that if I need to do a YouTube video comparing some stuff, it's going to be here for a while. And eventually I'll take it up and I'll like permanently place it next to the 4K TV. But I want to go over there and play my Series S when I get done. And every time I've done that, it has never been this experience where I'm like, oh man, this is kind of a bummer. I'm sad that I'm playing on this inferior console. It's never occurred to me. Instead, I'm just enjoying playing games on it, and it's been great for that. So yeah, and just to elaborate on Gary's last point there, real quick, he's talking about like Microsoft's got a lot of catching up to do. I think Dave Lang, who's a developer, I think pointed out like when developers think about making games for a console, they aren't necessarily thinking about the install base. The thing that they're worried about is attachment rate. And that tells you like how willing people who own a console are to buy more video games. And the Xbox, even through the Xbox One generation, has always had a really high attach rate. The people who buy games on Xbox buy a lot of video games. And I think that Microsoft sees Game Pass as this pathway to building on that, where you get people into Game Pass, they start playing games with their friends, and those friends start talking about games more. And then when they want to go out and they want to play the next big video game that's coming out, maybe it's not even coming to Game Pass. Well, you're more willing to make that investment to buy that next game because you have friends who are going to be there to play with you. And that is this network effect is huge. Microsoft sees that. They have the telemetry telling them this is what is going to make this push this thing over the top. And I think they're going to see it through. And I think it's going to end up, really working out just fine for them with a console like the Xbox Series S.
Awesome. Well, both of you said it very well. I'll keep mine short, sweet, and simple. The Xbox Series S is dope. Y'all should check it out if that fits your needs. Go out there and go grab it, all right? Beautiful. Now we're going to wrap up the show with a quick user best friend question coming in from Danny S. He says, guys, do you foresee any get hype moments at the Game Awards this year for Xbox? I have to imagine they have something big, considering last year they dropped 2 megatons, the Hellblade 2 trailer and the Series X announcements, and this year they might want to try and match that level of excitement with something else. So Gary, I'll kick it over to you first. The Game Awards right around the corner. What do you think Xbox is going to bring to the table to get us all hyped and excited?
I mean, what could it be? Because all the we already know that the next Halo is coming, right? They already did that one. We know the next Fable is coming. The next Forza. I'm not super excited about the next Forza. I know some people would be, but like, yeah, okay, there's going to be a new Forza. I'm trying to think like what's still like what's not yet on the table, but Microsoft could put on the table in terms of their big franchises. It's too early, but maybe one of the Bethesda titles that they've acquired. A new Fallout. Or whatever the next Elder Scrolls is going to be, they could go all out there. I think it's probably too early for that, and I'm trying to think like what else is in their kind of brand portfolio. You know me, I want them to bring back Crimson Skies and Perfect Dark and all of the old favorites, but that's not necessarily like a sit up and pay attention kind of thing. I don't know. I don't know what it would be, but I do feel like they're gonna. Yes, I think they're going to do something, and B, they kind of have to because they're still fighting this narrative that they don't the game portfolio, especially with the exclusives, could be stronger. I think Sony has a slight edge. At launch, had a slight edge in terms of game exclusives. I don't think that's going to necessarily perpetuate throughout the life of the next generation. But Microsoft do need to make some moves there, and I think that. But again, it's going to be a while before we really start to see the fruits of it. But that Bethesda acquisition was massive. Like they basically just augmented their exclusive portfolio with like not just one, but like 2, 3, 4 major franchises: Doom, Wolfenstein, Elder Scrolls, and Fallout. That he picked all, and there's others as well that are kind of tier 2. But like that was a massive increase to their addition to their first party stable. And I feel like the next really big like, oh shit, look what Microsoft is just announced is probably going to come from that Bethesda acquisition. It's going to be one of those, whatever the next installment is in one of those big franchises.
All right. Yeah, Jeff, what are the get hype moments? Lay it on me.
Yeah, I don't know anything, but other than I've heard that they will have something, and I think it's something we haven't heard of before. But I don't want like people to like speculate that it's like a megaton. I don't know that for sure. I wouldn't. Don't get your hopes up too high. Maybe it is, but I don't know. So don't go wild with speculation there. My hope is, and I know the Bethesda deal hasn't closed yet, but I hope one of the things is the new Wolfenstein. I would love Wolfenstein 3 to show up there.
Hell yeah.
That would, yeah, I am so ready for that game. And if they could show that and even suggest the relationship with the Xbox there at that point, that would be really good for Xbox.
What about the initiative? Do we think we finally see what they're up to?
I think it's a possibility. I think that I know that there was light talks earlier this year before the pandemic, saying that if we have an XO20 or whatever, and if we do that, maybe we'll talk about the initiative there. And this was just like light chatter. So that time frame would kind of match up a little bit with they don't have that. There is the Game Awards. Maybe they could do it there, but that doesn't mean that they're ready now. This was 10 months ago that I heard stuff like this. But I still think it's possible. And if it's ready, boy, it would be nice to get out there and just like kind of like give us an idea or give us a good idea of what this is. So like there's people who are doing like the puddle news right now where they're hearing, oh, it's episodic, let's freak out. We don't know what that means. Even if it is episodic, we don't necessarily know how that, like maybe it's episodic like the Final Fantasy VII remake is episodic. So let's just, there's something there, tell us so we can like have a good idea so people can stop sort of losing their mind about it. I think that would be great too.
I like that. I'm going to swing for the fences, guys, because I like to go big on this podcast. So we're going to see the initiative come in with the title splash screen. Perfect Dark is in the making. I want to see what Compulsion Games is doing. I'm looking for that next title. And most of all, we're bringing back Fusion Frenzy and Conker's Bad Fur Day. It's going to be the next Microsoft Xbox console platform mascot. We're going to ditch the nitty gritty. We're going to go out there and be like, hey, Deadpool was hot. Everybody loved that R-rated Deadpool. You get Conker's Bad Fur Day mature title. That's honestly what we want.
I know we joke around, but like I honestly think that is a box that they need to check. Sony's got that box checked very, very well between Sackboy, which I keep telling people it's a great game. Sackboy is really a lot of fun, really beautifully designed game, very, very cute. And then they've got.
I'm imagining a rated R Sackboy, and that's not what I want to be imagining.
Yeah,
right now,
and they've got Ratchet and Clank as well. But Sony's got not just Conker, but Banjo Kazooie on the bench. They need to get these characters off the bench and get them back in the game.
Get them in the game. You know what, Jeff Grubb? One before we go, they need to bring back Doritos Crash Course. All right, bring back Doritos Crash Course.
Yeah, make it happen.
Here's your Xbox Game Pass or Play for the week. Hey, guess what? NHL 94 Rewind is now on Game Pass thanks to that EA Play deal. So go out there and check out some old school hockey with a new school look. NHL 94 Rewind on Game Pass now. Go play it over the holidays. Jeff Grubb, where can everybody find you?
Twitter. Get me on Twitter. I tweet way too much. Don't follow me unless you're prepared for that. If you regret it, unfollow me. No bad feelings. I'm Jeff Grubb on there. Please, give it a try at least.
Yo, follow Jeff Grubb. He's the dopest dude in video games. He's the guy I want to play video games on the couch with.
It's impossible if you're the dopest. How is that possible if you're the dopest? Doesn't work, man.
Gary Whitta, where can all my friends find you?
Gary Whitta on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Easy to find. GaryWhitta. I'm going to be doing some streaming again, probably as soon as this weekend. I got a bunch of stuff I want to catch up on. Too many games, Mike. That's the problem. Too many games. Like, by the way, let me just add this on there. I don't know how hardcore this will. I know you're hardcore Xbox, Mike. This will really this will be a real shibboleth for you. Talking about about famous game characters that Microsoft could bring off the bench. Sneak King. Let's get those. Let's get those.
Sneak King too.
I went to Burger King. I had in the box every 360 Burger King title, including Sneak King, which I actually thought was a very underrated game. And maybe it's time for the King.
Gary.
Maybe it's time for the King to get off the bench, get back into the console wars. Let's get some next generation. Because now, of course, you wouldn't have to pick up the game. Now you just get some kind of download code or something. But I'd be all for next gen versions of what were they? What were the other two? Sneak King was one. There was like a bumper car racing game.
Yeah.
You
guys are the best.
Bubby bumpers. I can't remember. Many good times playing those games though.
Those are some deep cuts that we brought out here. Thanks to Jeff Grubb. You can follow me on Twitter at SnowBikeMike. Of course, check me out live streaming on twitch.tv at SnowBikeMike. Of course, on behalf of myself, Barrett, Courtney, the Kind of Funny team, Gary Whitta, the Rogue One, and our special guest, the dopest dude in video games, Jeff Grubb. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Kind of Funny Xcast. Will we be back next week? I don't know. Tune in to find out. Peace, everybody.